Welcome to Talent Talk with SSM Health. My name is Becky Feldman, and today I'm joined by two of our veterans from our talent acquisition team who are going to share their calling to serve. Veterans, active duty or retired, have a calling to serve. They sacrifice their lives and give selfishly to the vulnerable, the sick, and the most fragile. At SSM Health, we share that calling to serve and value our service to our country. Serving others is what we do at SSM Health, every patient, every time. And like the veterans, we serve with compassion, respect, and dignity. We encourage the human spirit to overcome all odds and remain dedicated to excellence in our stewardship to the community. Our SSM Health family includes close to 1,000 veterans who support our mission as employees and volunteers. We are pleased to have two veterans with us today who are continuing their legacy of service and improving the lives of our patients, their families, and all those we serve at SSM Health. Thank you, Rick and Garrett, for your service to SSM Health and to our country. Let's get some introductions going.
Yeah. So my name's Garrett Dorr. I work in talent acquisition here as a talent coordinator. So I served in the Marine Corps for 6 years, active reserve. So I did one deployment to Abu Ghraib prison. So I stayed at a prison cell for 7 months, which was fun. But yeah, I was in the infantry, so 0311, and after that I transitioned back into, the civilian world and continued on. So.
Hi, I'm Rick Dieterer. I did 27 years of active service in the Army and retired from the Pentagon. I worked for the Secretary of Defense for the last couple of years. And living in DC would make anybody want to retire. So my wife grew up here, so we moved back about 3-4 years ago. My career trajectory in the Army was I was an enlisted infantry guy, jumped out airplanes and helicopters and decided to go to OCS and became an officer and was then a transportation officer. After about 10 years, your knees get shot. And then I did policy in human resources. So happy to be here. Thank you.
So, Rick, when you first came to SSM Health and transitioned back to SSM Health, you worked for our Health at Home division. Can you tell us a little bit about that position?
I did. I retired and we were looking for jobs here in St. Louis because we were going to move back. And I found a job. My wife was a previous hospice director. And I sent her a job posting and said, I think this would be great for you. It was a job in hospice that was caring for veterans at end of life. And she said, you should apply. I said, I'm retiring. She said, you should apply. So I did. And SSM was nice enough to bring me in, and we created a program for veterans at end of life. And it's just an absolutely wonderful opportunity to go in at a very vulnerable portion of a veteran's life in that last chapter. And that's what really got me hooked on the mission of what SSM does.
Great. Garrett, can you tell us about your first job transitioning from reserves?
My transition just being, back from a deployment in the reserves was a little bit different than, the typical transition. So, luckily enough, Home Depot kept the job that I had. So I went back there and started working again pretty much right when I got back, after a small break. And then I basically just continued on with school. So I finished up my bachelor's degree, and then I moved on and got my master's in IO psychology.
So you had always said, Garrett, you wanted to work for not-for-profit, and you had a personal drive to work for a company whose mission aligned with yours, and that's why you came to SSM Health. But what's next for you with a degree in psych and master's in industrial and organizational psych? What's next?
Well, I'm working right now on transitioning from recruitment and then using my degree even more to go on to maybe organizational development here. So so it's exciting to think about making that transition and starting something new and taking on more of a challenge.
So can you tell us, for those who are listening today, who or what has been most helpful as you transition from reserves or active military service, and then on the flip side, what was most challenging and how did you work through that?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, definitely. I think for the most part, family, close friends, they're definitely someone that, they need to know, not just because to hold you accountable, but whenever you say something out loud, especially to people who are close to you, you're more likely to follow that. And, of course, then they can hold you accountable for that. So, tell them what your plans are, let them know, hey, this is what I'm planning to do now that I'm back, now that, I want to pursue this option in my career, or, go to work or go to school, whatever it happens to be, and make a list of things that you need to do, and follow it, because if you write things down, once again, just like saying it, you're more likely to follow through then. I think family and friends, they're the ones that can kind of put you in check too. When you have maybe unrealistic expectations, then start smaller and then grow from there. So.
I think that's helpful advice really for anyone who's looking to make a transition, whether it's transitioning from service or if it's a recent graduate looking for their first job right out of college.
Okay.
So Rick, what advice do you have?
As we talked about earlier, Becky, I remember one time I was walking the hallways and Terrence Field said to me, "Hey Rick, I heard you're retired." And I said, "I am." I said, "Terrence, do you have any advice?" And he says, "I got 2 pieces of advice for you." He said, "Tell everybody you're looking for a job." And he said, "Put your pride aside, tell everybody you're looking for a job." And he said, "And the best piece of advice I can give to you is your job now is to get a job." So that's what you should be doing. To Garrett's point, in the transition from active military or from a deployment like Garrett had, you have a lot of downtime, and it's very easy to become complacent and say, you know what, I'm just going to relax and decompress for a while. And there's certainly time for that. But as that time extends, as Garrett said, it becomes more and more difficult to keep that network close. My experience moving inside DC is that my credibility was a known asset in DC. When I came out to St. Louis, I really had to re-challenge myself to develop that network through family and friends and the experiences we had here a number of years ago.
So let's talk about resumes. You've both shared previously how this can be a real challenge to work through. What advice do you have for those who are transitioning to help market themselves and utilize some of the skills that they have in the service to translate to a corporate environment, for example?
Yeah. Obviously we speak a different language in the military, so just getting rid of any jargon or, we're huge on acronyms. So, and that's something I see just going through resumes, it pops up all the time. And, luckily I know, and can figure out what some of those things are, but even me, having, not as, knowledge as Rick had in the military, with 20 some years, I was in the reserve, so I'm missing that active portion of what a lot of people got to experience. So, just think about if someone just off the street, a civilian was looking at your resume, hand it to them and say, hey, does this make sense to you? And, just take all that stuff out that they ask about in terms of well, what's, what does this acronym mean? What does that mean? Because chances are a recruiter probably won't know either. So the more questions they have about what you've done, the more likely it is that they're going to pass.
So Rick, you mentioned a tool that was helpful for you in that translation exercise. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I did. I used a tool that was given to us at Transition Point. It's called TagCrowd. And TagCrowd was a phenomenal tool, especially that, as a military person, you transition into government roles. And what TagCrowd did is you can take the requisition, put it into TagCrowd, and then TagCrowd will pull the keywords out. And what you would do is take those keywords and try to incorporate those and integrate those into your resume, so you have a better chance of matching your resume up against the position vacancy. I think we tend to, in our job search, become somewhat complacent, is that I've created a resume that is the most phenomenal resume in the entire world, and you don't realize why you're not getting any hits on it. Well, you have to build that resume for the job requisition. In many cases, your skills acquired in the military may have applications across so many different disciplines. And you need to have a resume that speaks to those disciplines. I have 3 or 4 different resumes for 3 or 4 different disciplines that I had in the military. I'm sure Garrett has the same thing. And it's just tailoring that resume to make sure that you can get to talk to people like Garrett. And then from there, you're selling yourself.
Right. So I think the thing is, utilize a tool like that, or a simple tool is the friends and family that you mentioned.
The network.
Put your resume in front of your friends and family and see if it makes sense to them. So let's talk through what positions at SSM Health are a good fit for transitioning service members. And I know the list is long, but what comes to the top of your head?
Supply chain, logistics, IT, HR,
Healthcare,
accounting,
EMT,
finance,
security,
Pastoral care, laboratory.
HR. Yeah.
chaplain.
And one area that
lab.
we really see a lot of transitioning service members is in our biomed or clinical engineering positions too. I mean, with over 35,000 employees across 4 states, both urban and rural, really every discipline in the service can be found here at SSM Health. Is really just trying to make that connection between those transferable skills, and that's going to make it easier to see. So employees tell us they came to SSM Health and they stay at SSM Health because of our mission, and we heard that's true today for both of you. So can you tell me a little bit more about what drew you to SSM Health and why you stay?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me personally, it is definitely about it being a calling. You have to be, have that mindset of wanting to help other people, not just the patients, but also the people you work with. I know in recruitment, we help each other out all the time. We're always willing to drop what we're doing to help out, our peers. So, I think for me, it's just the culture fits. And then, I just like being a part of something that's just bigger than myself. That's why I went into the Marine Corps to begin with. SSM being a well-known name, just like the Marine Corps was, and the prestige that comes with it, I think, it just kind of all fits together for me.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. It's selfless service. I think both Garrett and I agree that selfless service is what drew us to military service. And what drew me to SSM is I had several different offers, and it was really nice to be in that environment. But what drew me to SSM is the nonprofit. We're really doing great things here. I firmly believe it. And I'll tell you a quick story is that when I came in and I was running that program for veterans, I had come in and I was really working just to get that program up and running. And everybody says, you live the mission at SSM, you really live the mission. And the mission is through our exceptional healthcare services, we reveal the healing presence of God. And in that job in hospice, when you walked in and you held the hand of a dying Marine or you held the hand of a World War II veteran, you really did reveal the healing presence of God. So when people say, what draws you to SSM or what draws you to stay with SSM, it's the mission. It's the mission that we can continue to be selfless servants in a healthcare environment and be with people in their most vulnerable chapters of their lives. And we always want them to have great outcomes. And sometimes they don't. And most of the times we hope that they do. But being there and allowing us to be present in their environment is it's just a wonderful experience.
Well, we appreciate the gifts you're sharing with us, and you guys have heard this before, and our listeners have probably heard this, but we believe each employee brings a special gift to our mission. What will yours be? We invite you to find your place at SSM Health and continue on our heritage of healing to serve others. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.